Hey everybody, christopherodd here. Welcome to Iratus, Lord of the Dead, which is getting its full 1.0 release tomorrow. And no, you're not having deja vu, mostly. I did a video on this back in July of 2019 when it was in early access, and I loved it. I had a really good time with it. Daedalic reached out and asked if I'd be interested in trying the 1.0 version, and here we are. So thank you so much to them for supporting the channel and sponsoring this series that we're going to do. If you haven't heard of Iratus, Lord of the Dead, think Darkest Dungeon, but we're the bad guys. And it'll make a bit more sense once we get into it. I don't want to try to over-explain all the mechanics right now. But it is a roguelike heavily inspired by Darkest Dungeon. But as I mentioned the last time we looked at the game, there's a lot of cool mechanics in here that I wish Darkest Dungeon would just steal and implement. Because you can see that these guys have borrowed from them, and it just makes all these games better. This seems to be the season of tactics-styled games. And hey, I love them. So here's another one for us that we can add to the plate. So let's get started. I'm going to see how far I can get in a 90-minute session. And then I'm going to share that with you in 3 parts over the next 3 days. I'm going to have links down below. Go check it out on Steam. But, you know, after the video, of course. Let's get started. I went through the tutorial, which is essentially what I experienced in the early access release. We're going to start on more pain. In order to get to the higher difficulties, you have to complete a run on the previous one. So let's begin. You can turn off checkpoints if you're hardcore like that, but I'm still learning. Even though you go through the tutorial, overall meta strategy and stuff, who knows? There's a lot going on there. Okay. So, first things first, we've got our squad down here, Bride of Iratus, Skeleton, Zombie, Dark Knight. Now, if we go over to the creation panel, this is one aspect that I love compared to Darkest Dungeon. Darkest Dungeon, you're getting a lot of random heroes thrown at you. And here you get to kind of create heroes, but not just willy-nilly. You can't just make whoever you want all the time. You have to use up these parts that are in your inventory that you gain from battles in order to create extra minions. And they all have different types of things that they do. They have different abilities. They have different stats. They have different play styles, everything. We're going to roll with the vanilla group right now, the Dark Knight, the Zombie, the Skeleton, and the Bride of Iratus. You can come in here and change these names, so I'll go ahead and do this really quick. We'll call this Zexter. My dog's name is Dexter. It's a zombie. I know. My other dog's name is Walter, so let's do Skeletor. And then lastly, my wife, Bride of Iratus. I'm sure she would love this. Bride of Odd. Oh, that's good. She'll probably divorce soon. Okay. Let's begin. We're going to, I guess we might as well unlock a talent here. So one of the key differences between this game and Darkest Dungeon is that we also are playing as Iratus, this guy that's in the middle of the screen. And he's got his own abilities that he can cast during battle. The way I can look at it is he's hovering over above, controlling these minions, but also spamming spells whenever he wants. So I'm going to take this Bone Spear. Just deals 10 to 18 physical damage. We're not going to get too deep into it. Let's get into the combat. So the kingdom has had need of the vast riches buried underneath the castle, great veins of iron that promise to fuel conquest after conquest, along with ancient artifacts from a long-forgotten age. The dwarves were eager to offer their services in this project, bringing their untested mining equipment and experimental concoctions for the promise of wealth. They only needed bodies that could obey, and that the humans could provide. With dungeon filled to the brim with both criminals and rebels, there was no shortage of slaves to work these mines. Drugs were used to keep them docile as they dug ever deeper, year after year, unaware of the mortal danger that awaited them below. All right, so here's our dungeon. Let's take a look. You can see it's got a ton of branching paths, and everything is available to you. I kind of look at this like Slay the Spire. You kind of see what's coming up and you make your decisions based on that. I don't have enough playtime in the game to fully understand what all of the implications of these are. So we're going to kind of go through here willy-nilly and hope for the best. Let's begin. Okay, so again, I want to get just showing you some of the gameplay, but there's a couple of basics that we should understand just when we're looking at this screen. These little stars are kind of unique features to that class. So the Dark Knight can't be critically hit. The skeleton can't get buffed or debuffed. And she has extra luck against female enemies, and luck leads to crits. You can see all of the different stats down below. Physical damage, dread, which controls how much stress these guys deal with stress attacks. Because that's right, we're the bad guys. We're dealing stress. It feels good. Your overall accuracy, your evasion, your luck for critical hits. Armor, so whenever a character with armor is dealt physical damage, that damage is reduced by the amount of armor that the defender has. And there's a lot of situations where you're dealing with these little basic enemies where you're reducing all of their damage if you have a little bit of armor. This guy over here, our knight, he has some armor. We can show you that when we get there. There's resistances, there's block, there's ward, and then there's initiative, which is controlled up here. Another key difference from Darkest Dungeon, you can actually see who's going next, and you don't have to make any guesses. You know how it's going to play out. Now, Bride of Odd in the back, looking great. Absolutely fantastic. We could throw down a variety of attacks. And again, similar to Darkest Dungeon, you're going to see the yellow is where we can attack from, which slots. The red is which slots we can attack. So this can hit anywhere, deals 100% of their physical attack. A critical will deal 175. Let's start out with this. And I want you to just pay attention to a couple things. So the orange light is just signifying whose turn it is. The red bar is their straight up health. If you remove all their health, obviously they die. The bottom bar is their sanity or their stress. And when you get them down to lower stress levels, or I guess higher stress levels, lower sanity, let's say, then weird things can start to happen. They'll start like attacking their own teammates. They'll have a chance to run away. A plethora of different things can occur. And when they're at 0 sanity, you do more sanity or additional sanity damage to them, or stress damage, and they have a chance to die. So they have kind of like a death blow resist built in. As far as I can tell, you can't exactly tell what it is. And I've hit people multiple times when they have 0 stress and they haven't died, but it's an alternate way of causing some chaos on the battlefield. And we'll probably get into that more when we deal with tougher enemies. So let's start getting through here. I'm just going to try to show you some of their attacks. So Skeletar here, we've got show them their place. You can see the arrows as well. That means that we're going to move forward 3, and we're going to also push people back 2. We've got the Smite. It's a physical attack. It attacks twice, dealing 40% of your damage. And it also does additional attacks for each buff on the target. So this is not a buff. This is a stance, which are a little bit different, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And then Embrace Mediocrity. It's a buff. The target gains +4 armor and +4 resistance until the battle ends, and stacks up to 3 times. So we could use that on somebody else if we wanted to. We're just going to deal some damage. And I think... let's push this guy back to bring the other weaker guy forward. Perfect. And that brings me to our next thing that I want to show you guys. Underneath these guys... I should have shown you this right before, but there's these 2 bars. One of these blocks stress damage, and one of these blocks physical and magic damage. I'll show you in the next battle when somebody has one, and it just basically nullifies that attack against that target. So you have to kind of whittle through that. For Dark Odd here, our knight, we've got a physical attack that deals 50% of our damage, but deals additional damage equal to 50% of the sum of our armor and resistance. Now think back to the previous character that we just had, right here where it was buff. So we can give armor and resistance until the battle ends. You can stack it to 3 times. So we want to stack him up with these buffs essentially, and then this attack becomes more and more strong as the battle goes on. Let's start attacking again. Can we hit 3rd position? No. Who can I hit 3rd position with here? None of these with physical attacks. So let's just start whittling them down. And then this is... okay, the Zexter class. The zombie class, I love. This is a really fun class to use. They have a lot of different skills depending on where you're at in the lineup. But this bombardment is a stance that occurs. Now, a stance can be interrupted by moving, I believe. So if the enemy moves us, it would cancel our stance. But his stance puts us into this mode where we're not going to do anything now, but at the next turn, we're going to dish out 4 attacks randomly amongst all the enemies that we have. So you're kind of delaying it, but it's a lot of extra damage because you're getting 50% of your physical damage 4 times. So essentially 200% of your damage output, which is really nice. You could also do a buff from this position where you get 100% damage for your next attack, but we're just going to show this. And he carries around this badass cannon. This zombie carrying a huge cannon. It's amazing. It's the best. Okay. Unassuming strike ignores armor. So one thing to look at on your enemies is their armor stats. These guys are all basic, so nothing to worry there. We could give him a buff here, and he kind of taunts, so he can gain a bunch of armor and resistance until the next action. Let's actually see how that works. Okay, so we just took a heavy chunk of D there. So he missed completely. I want to show you some of that armor reduction, hopefully. Okay, chest piercer if we want. We can do stress attacks. The stance, so whenever an enemy moves, we deal physical damage to it, which is quite cool. Bride gains +10 attack and +10 dread until the battle ends. Dread, again, is how much damage we deal with stress attacks. Let's see if we can get a kill here soon. Pretty tanky, so he's reducing all of those attacks by his armor. Okay, let's stay with the physical attacks, and yeah, this is fine. Death comes for everyone. Okay, so here's his attack now. He hits 4 random targets. This dude just happens to be... This dude's very unlucky today. Now, let's show you something else. So he's got a cannonball skill that he can use. They all have kind of these ultimate abilities. And they cost this, I believe it's called Wrath. Yeah. So this fills up over the course of your battle, and you can use this to cast more powerful attacks from your minions. There's also this mana in the middle. And think back to what I said earlier about Iratus himself kind of lording over this. And he's got different things that he can do. So he can move minions left and right, but it costs mana. So if you want to reposition, that's how you're going to do it. He also has this spell that we unlocked, costs 15 mana, deals 10 to 18 physical damage to each enemy in positions 1 and 2. Spell power increases damage dealt by 1%, which is nothing right now, and it costs 15 mana, which comes from this pool. There are certain classes that can help to replenish this, but we don't have that right now, so we're going to be at their mercy. But this is going to hit the front 2, so let's go. And then let's throw in that cannonball to use up some of this wrath. This is going to deal 200% of his damage, which is no small amount. It's actually probably overkill for here, but it looks cool, so I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, literally disintegrated.
Just as it died.
Notice it moved him back. So like these shuffling around, you might think it's not a big deal, but if you're constantly using spells, which you should be using at a regular pace, and if you're running low on mana, then moving people around gets a little bit scary. If we want to see the ultimate for her, it does 50% damage, but it inflicts critical hits. So let's hit it. It's going to hit everybody in the group. Not a very efficient usage here, but pretty solid. We could spend more mana here. Notice we're out of Wrath. We can't use his ultimate. The nice thing about using his spells is that it doesn't cost an action from your minion. Let's just go physical. That's how we can kill this guy. And we'll move on. I say that like there's not a chance we can miss. There are chances to miss as well. I'll show you that down below. Okay, so we found Digger's Souls. These are used to upgrade buildings back at our base, essentially. Skin of Alabaster reduces damage received from elite enemies by 20%. Skulls and Blood, which are used to craft minions and other things. And then we have a Symbol of Fortune. Minions gain 25 luck and minus 25 accuracy until the battle ends. Okay, so let's see. We have another talent available. Let's go ahead and put it in more destruction. I'd like just having damage right now. Early on, that's, at least in the tutorial, that helped a lot. But, you know, who knows? And you can fill out multiple parties. There's enough slots for 4 parties, and you can, like, drag people around in these different parties if you want. And what you can do is when you're out in this dungeon, you can select which party you want to fight with. So if these people need a break, you can get that. Now, you might be noticing, if you're keen-eyed, that we have some plus signs here, so there's some promotions to be had. We also have half health on Zexter right now. So if we go into, I believe it's alchemy, yeah, and we go into distillation, we can restore 15% vigor to all minions if we just use 3 parts. Allows the transformation of 2 parts, brains, or items into vigor. So if I just fill this, it's going to fill it all with what we need, and we're going to heal for 15%. Now, I don't want to use armor pieces. I'm going to use more of the basic pieces. Rags. This flesh is fine.
Ah, the smell.
And we're just going to heal up to there. Because obviously if we're only healing 1 person, it's way less efficient. There's a bunch of other stuff you can do in here. You can fill this with extra stuff to get more mana, so on and so forth. But for right now, we're going to carry on. Let's do quick stat promotions here. So every 3rd level, you get a skill point, and then you can buff one of your current skills. The ultimate, I believe, is every 5 levels, I think. Don't quote me on that. But it takes a little bit longer to level the ultimate skills. And in addition to that, you have these stats which you can control. So if you want to have somebody be a little bit more... where's my evasion here? Down here, then you could put points into evasion if you want to focus on just attacks, or if you want to focus on dread. Like, you have control over how these guys are leveling. Some of them have some caps, so you can see here, this next upgrade cost is going to be 5. So we could hold this right now, but his armor and his resistance are already pretty high. So I think we're good. Let's get some physical attacks going there. And then the next upgrade cost for this one is 3, which we can't afford. Let's go accuracy here. And then over on Skeletar, we're going to go... I'll take a little bit of armor here. Armor's kind of nice. If we ever see brains over here, then we can like power level our guys. Maybe we'll find that. Maybe we won't. We have the Skin of Alabaster, reducing damage received from elite enemies by 20%. We can have him carry this. We haven't seen an elite enemy yet. Think of these are kind of like trinkets from Darkest Dungeon. Okay, let's go. Let's go back in. So cultists, mortal cultists who gift Iratus with random consumables or minion-specific items. Let's do it. Choose a gift. Bride of Iratus only. Okay, we have that. Increases critical damage dealt by the Bride of Iratus by 35. That's actually really nice because we have that skill that does, her ultimate does guaranteed crits, so it's pretty savage. Enchanted Bone, the skeleton becomes receptive to buffs, but still immune to debuffs. Not bad either. We don't have a lot of buffs happening in this specific party. Heart of Emptiness for the Dark Knight. 5 mana and 5 wrath restored each time the Dark Knight receives damage. Ooh, I kind of like that. And then the zombie. At the start of each turn, the zombie receives +8 accuracy and 20% damage. Stacks up to 5 times. The bonus is removed if the zombie changes position. Okay. So that one's going to be a little bit more difficult to manage. I guess if you were to stack that with his one skill where he was doing that barrage, it would be kind of cool. I think I'm going to take the Heart of Emptiness. And let's throw that on here. Just to keep the mana and the wrath going a little bit more. Now, if we take a look, we do have a branch here. There's 2 fights on the left, 1 fight this way. And the ultimate goal being way up here, trying to get out. You do get a little preview of the battles, which is nice. Sometimes you have some question marks. So notice this one's got 4 guys. That 4th position is called the Taskmaster, I believe. And he does a lot of buffs. He's a bit of a nuisance. But let's get into it, and we'll show you a different enemy type than we've seen. Okay. So now we see the new skill that we've unlocked. This guy has put a buff. So this is the first time we've seen a buff. It's this green icon. And we have some people, I believe, here. Where is it? So his smite ability, it attacks twice, dealing 40% damage per attack, but performs additional attacks for each buff on the target. So now that this guy's buffed, we get a third attack in there, which I think is pretty nice. Let's go ahead and start with this. Okay, cool. We could continue putting damage in there, or we could do stress attacks. We should see this. When this Taskmaster dies, his allies recover 30 sanity. So we either kill him while they have full sanity, or we kill them all first and then kill him. We could start trying to do some sanity damage here. Lose all debuffs from the Dark Knight, and we gain mana and Wrath. I think we just keep hitting here for now. 16 damage ain't bad. Oh, and I'll show you the percentage chance to hit as well. So if we hover over this, you can see in the bottom right here, the accuracy. Then that's how you know. Accuracy over 100% increases the chance of hitting targets with evasion. Makes sense. Okay. Let's go chest piercer here. Okay, so you notice he took damage. All of this stuff increased. Very cool. Which means we can spam more abilities. 8 to 18 physical damage twice to the same target. This guy's pretty close. Let's use it. See you later.
No sun up in the sky.
Now, this guy's in a stance. We saw on one of her skills where we can interrupt a stance right here with the warning shot. So it's going to push her to the back. It's going to move somebody back 1. It's going to deal stress damage, but it's also going to interrupt their stance, which messes things up. So for him, he's in a defensive stance. Whenever a minion moves, attack it for 10 to 12 damage. So that's going to mess us up a little bit if we use movement attacks. To test that, let's go ahead and do this on the big boy. It's going to push us back. And then he gets that attack in. So. Okay, so that whip, he applies a bunch of accuracy and damage to this guy. But then we follow up with smite on anybody that's buffed, so we get extra attacks in. We'll also go ahead and... yeah, let's focus him down.
Oh, wow. There's no sun up in the sky. Bony weather incoming.
Okay, we whiffed one there. 95%. It can happen. Okay, so we're going to break this stance now. We're also going to start giving some stress damage. So notice that's dropped a little bit. Usually around halfway or so, this is when things start to get crazy and they start to have some of those sanity checks come in. Each time he receives a buff, the Dark Knight deals 8 to 9 stress damage to it. Again, like that's fine if there's a lot of buffing happening, but I think early on, at least against these more basic enemies, just slamming them down seems to work pretty nice. Now here's a magic attack. There's physical, there's magic, and then there's stress. Physical and magic both still take from the overall health. But there are some different resistances to magical things that we've seen, so we'll pay close attention to that if it comes up. Okay, good. I'm happy for him to get hit. He's got tons of armor, so that's fantastic. Let's do her ultimate, I think. Inflicts that critical hit. And we'll also drop... what's this guy at? 23? It's going to be close. Let's drop this to hit the front 2. And then we're going to go Rose for a Lady here. Use up some of this Wrath. Beautiful. Okay, so this guy actually had it happen a lot sooner than I would expect. So his sanity starts to drop. The lower the sanity of the target, the higher the chance they'll go insane, become inspired, or escape. So he's hopeless. His luck is reduced, decreasing damage dealt by 50%, loses all any blocks or wards that he has, which are these bars at the bottom that we talked about in the last fight. And then he loses all his armor and his resistances. So you can see how these can be pretty significant in that using stress attacks will actually make a big difference. This interrupts stances as well. So let's go ahead and throw this down. It's only going to deal 50% of the damage, but that's okay. That moves him to the front. And we'll set up bombardment again to get attacks in next round. Okay, so what do we want to do with this big boy? I think we just hammer him down here. I like that. Okay, look at this. I'm actually really happy with this little Heart of Emptiness that we got going on here. Very nice. Very nice. We could try Shield Banger now. It's a stress attack. I don't know. I guess he's already got the... he's already going crazy, so I don't think we need to do that. We could do a taunt here. Or we could just hammer him. Let's just hammer him, eh? Let's go on this guy. I want to see what happens. I want to see if they can come out of this. So if he dies, his allies are going to recover sanity. And I don't know if this can get removed or not. You're also going to notice this chance to escape. So based on the amount of sanity they have left, they will try to run at some point. Which is, I mean, it's also fine because they're gone, in my opinion. How much damage do we need here? 36. If we crit him, could happen. Have to be crit from here, though. Oh, got the high range for sure.
Delivered.
Okay, so his sanity starts to gain, but it didn't remove that, which is nice. And fortunately for us, he takes all 4 of those attacks. We're at 94 Wrath right now. Let's see if we can finish him. It's going to be close. 29. That's too bad because now he gets an attack off. Okay. Cool, cool, cool.
Mop up the gore.
Okay, so here's some of the brains that I was talking about.
Using it as fertilizer.
And we can use this to instantly level up certain people. So first of all, let's go into our stats here. And I think with him, like, physical attacks seem solid. We might want to hold. Cost is 3. Yeah, let's actually hold his stat points for now. For the bride, she's kind of got a mix of both. If we go into here, it says uses only the best part to raise a deadly archer with an unhealthy love for her creator. Said love is then channeled into a burning desire to shoot out the eyes of anything that might try to get close to the one she worships. Some of them have kind of hints as to how they should be played. But she does a fair amount of physical damage. So I feel like, again, just taking physical attacks is safe. If we go into the brains here, who do we want to give this to? What if I give it to him? So I'm going to put this here. Replace the current item. Yes. So we replace a 2 with a 3. And you can see here, it gets them up to that level that they have going on. So now we could go into more attack if we want. We'll save this last one. Let's move him up. So the max you can have in here is 4. And this is just going to make him go faster in the rounds. But he also unlocked an ability because he's level 3 here. Because we gave him a new brain. Which is just like this cool way of, like, you're looking at these minions you have. You're like, oh, I'll take this brain. I'm going to replace it with a better one. And I'm like, I should consider that sometimes. What skill do we want to upgrade? There's 2 ways of looking at it. You can tell by these icons. So if we look at this, it's going to deal 100% damage like it did before, but now it's going to ignore the ward. If you go over here, it's going to ignore resistances. If you go here, it's going to ignore armor. Oh, I'm sorry. These actually buff his own personal attribute. That's my bad. These are buffing his personal attributes. So his initiative here, his aim. I like bombardment. Having the accuracy could be good there. What does this one do? So it takes us from 55 damage to 70 or 70 magic damage, but we just increase his physical. So let's take this.
Now, prove yourself worthy of my investment.
It's also going to buff his aim by 4, so he's going to land all those attacks, hopefully. And then if we wanted to, we could come in here. We could maybe do... Let's do a little bit of healing. I'll maybe do one more round. Stuff that's laying around. Now, depending on the type of people that you would like to create, you may not want to get rid of certain things. So if we want to make, say, a banshee, which is heavily stress damage based, then you want to have the appropriate things. So you fill it with ectoplasm, dust, regs, and a heart. And then boom, crafted, you have a level 1 banshee. The challenge is that takes out of parts that you could use to heal and vice versa. If you're using things to heal, then that's a bit of a problem. On the Dark Knight, as you can imagine, it's using weapons and armor because of its kind of innate abilities. What else can we talk on before we wrap up this one? Talents we already went to. So if you go into destruction here, Flaming Skull sets a target on fire for 2 turns, dealing 9 damage per turn. Cursed Doll deals 25 magic damage, which is pretty good. In the Ire tree, we've got Drums of War, minion gains +2 initiative. If Iratus has at least 25 wrath. Every time a minion misses with an attack, Iratus gains +3 wrath. And we don't miss that often yet. Target minion loses luck and gains attack and dread until the end of battle. Doesn't stack. All minions receive +3 attack. Does not work on summoned minions.
I embrace this fury.
Okay, so let's wrap it up here for today. When we come back, we're going to head back into the dungeon, do a few more missions. I'll probably be explaining things less and less as we go, but I want you guys to kind of understand some of the mechanics. And they're a lot deeper than what I've even gotten into. I would advise you to go watch the video that I put out in July for this game, and it does a good job of covering off all the things in the tutorial, getting you up to speed on the mechanics at a deeper level, but I think you kind of have the rough idea. So we'll see how far we can get over the next 2 episodes. Wish me luck, and we'll see you in those. Thanks so much for watching the video. If you could like the video as well, share it with your friends, that would help a lot. I would really appreciate it. Take care, guys. Be safe.